Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Panther. I'm your host, Jacob Langsam. Here with me, as always, are my co-hosts, TJ Peterson and Alex Lopez. And joining us today, a very special guest, my new sword. I own a sword now, and it's with me as I'm recording. Sword, How are you today? I'm doing great, thanks. That's what my sword sounds like now.
We're doing this podcast under duress. Like we are scared for our lives.
It is extremely not sharp, but it can still be used as a blunt object. So it's really more of a sword-shaped club, but that's neither here nor there. The point is that the Panthers draft, or rather the NHL draft, is complete as of the end of this week. I say that as if it took like an entire week to draft. It kind of felt like it did. I'll be honest, I didn't really pay a whole lot of attention. The Panthers had 7 picks starting in the third round. No first, no second. Those were all given up as part of trades to acquire players such as Sam Reinhart, Sam Bennett, others, I imagine, whose names are escaping me.
I think that was it. No, the first was used in the Sam Reinhart trade. The second was used in the Sam Bennett trade.
I'm thinking of Claude Giroux and Ben Sherratt for
but those are future years.
Yeah. So lots of the Panthers are going to be short on early draft picks for a couple of years here.
Yeah, they have 2 seconds, or including the one they used this year, they have 2 third-round picks and 1 second-round pick in the next 3 drafts, including the last one, including the one that just happened. So yeah.
So since we are not draft scouts, our analysis is going to be relatively shallow, but TJ mostly is going to talk about how he feels about the picks as the one of the 3 of us, I think, who did the most research into this year's draft.
Like I said, I have the Elite Prospects thing, the PDF.
Right, that's what I said. The most research of the 3 of us.
Tommy's with us as well. He is very interested in these players because they're the closest to his age. So he's also got some expertise.
No, not quite. These players are not quite closer to Tommy's age than ours. Not quite.
Well,
we're not that old yet.
Well, they're closer.
You guys aren't that old, but it's like a year away from Tommy being closer than I am.
Wow.
No, you've still got a few years, Alex.
No, the prospects are 18.
Oh, that's right. Tommy's the ones who are 17. 2. Yeah.
I'm going to be 34 next draft. So I think next year, Tommy's going to be closer to the age than I will.
That is correct.
Actually, no, I'll be 16. No, it'll be 16. Holy shit. And we'll give the tie to the person who's not over. Guys, it's really hitting me how old I was. Because I remember when I was a kid, even though I knew I had no shot to get drafted, I'm like, oh, my draft year is coming up. And now I have a kid who is closer to his draft year than I am.
I will never forget playing sports games in like 2012. That being the first time that my created characters, I actually had to like scroll to my birth year if I wanted to be perfectly matched up and not just be the youngest possible that I could be. That hit me hard. And that was 10 years ago. And I shouldn't have done that to myself.
10 years ago, we had jobs, hopes, and cash. And now what do we have?
I only had one of those 3 things 10 years ago. Now I have 2 of them. I'll let you guess which 2.
Guys, you only have 1 job, so I'm going to go with hope and cash. So do you guys want to go ahead and start talking about the drafted players?
Yes, TJ, please go ahead and start talking about the drafted players. I don't even remember all of their names.
I couldn't tell you a single name.
Well,
the only thing that I know is we did not draft Anton Lundell's younger brother.
We can talk about that.
Brother get drafted? Period.
No, he did not. All right. So 93rd overall, Panthers' first pick of the draft. They took Marek Alsher, Czech defenseman playing in the WHL for the Portland Winterhawks.
Did you say Marek?
I'm thinking it's Marek.
So definitely Marek.
All right, fine, Marek Alsher. And he's a big guy. He's 6'3", 200 pounds. And he played on the 3rd pairing this year for Portland. And it really looks like they reached for the big, hulking defensive defenseman who does not have any offensive potential. I'm looking at the micro stats that were provided by Elite Prospects and their draft guide. He's got good transition numbers. His zone exit numbers are all excellent.
Oh, that's great.
Defensively, he's really just like lowercase g good, above average. Offensively, looks like a black hole. His closest comparables that made the NHL are guys like Clayton Stoner, Braden Coburn, Dion Phaneuf, Joel Edmondson, Paul Postma, Alex Petrovic also on here. These are guys that, they made the NHL. And if he makes the NHL and he has that kind of impact in the third round, that's honestly a successful pick. But there's so many guys that did not make the NHL with this kind of profile. So you're setting yourself up to say, oh, there's like a 5 to 10% chance that he could be a third pairing depth defenseman that provides zero value, basically. Well, not zero value, but like maybe if you're lucky, one win of replacement a year.
Yeah.
Well, let me cut you off there, TJ. There's only a 10% chance. It's like something minuscule, like 10% to 12% chance that a third round pick plays 100 games in the NHL anyway. I don't disagree.
That even seems
in terms
high.
of your analysis. Huh?
That even seems high, a 10 to 12% chance for the third round.
Right. And I'm not trying to say you're wrong, TJ, about your evaluation. I'm just saying, like, the way this, you're picking in the third round, late third round at that. Because remember, the Panthers were a good team this year. So I think it was like the 28th pick in the third round. Your odds of, like, it's essentially a fourth round pick. This, and I'll give you my short draft analysis now before I say what I want to do later, what I wish they had done later. This draft is a success if you get 100 total games from the entire draft class.
Yep. I don't disagree. But the thing is, like, and I'm not going to say this about every pick, but I'm looking at this and I'm thinking to myself, like, what is the upside of this? Like, you drafted somebody where the best case scenario seems to be that they're somebody that could easily be replaced by a free agent signing that makes $1.25 million a year.
Yes.
I don't understand. Like,
you're just throwing darts. If your first pick is in the third round, in the late third, you're throwing darts. That's all there really is to understand.
I mean, sure, but like this,
they're taking a shot at someone who has a decent draft profile that also fills a team need. I know, and if they can develop some of the skills that he's not as good at, then cool.
Well, hold on. Let me defend what I think is TJ's point here, because I actually agree with him here. In the NHL draft, you should always be throwing darts at impact players. Yes, I know there's a lot less of them in the third round, but your dart shouldn't be throwing at someone who, exactly what TJ says, projects as a Radko Gudas type player, which is you can get in free agency for 1 to 2 million AAV. You should be drafting someone with an elite trait that's hard to find, whether it's speed or stick handling or shooting ability, something that you can't teach, that if you could round out the other portions of the game, you end up with a 5 million AAV player on an ELC. That's the dart you should be throwing. And that's where I think what TJ's point is.
That's fine, but we don't know how many of those there were. We don't know how many of those the team had identified.
No, we don't.
And like, I don't normally go to bat like that for questionable decision making, but I don't know. It's if your first pick is in the late third, you're just taking what's there.
Absolutely.
All right. You know what?
It's not as evident. Like finding those diamonds in the rough is not as easy at that point. So if you're gonna find someone who's decent in their own end, and by the way, Radko Gudas does not match that profile. Not quite. Gudas is not a black hole offensively. Gudas has not the best transition game. Like, he's known, sure, for his mean streak on defense, but like that's about where we draw the line.
I do have one bit of analysis for this prospect, though. I do actually have something I remember. Apparently, his favorite food is spaghetti carbonara, which is my favorite food.
Oh, so this is now your favorite player?
No.
Alex, that's how this works. This is now your favorite player. I'm not asking.
It's still Barkov. I'm sorry. Also, spaghetti carbonara is like the most unhealthiest pasta there is. Yeah, for those of you who don't know what spaghetti
sauce and cheese and bacon.
Yes, it's literally cream sauce, cheese, and bacon. You make the sauce by mixing heavy cheese and eggs. That's the sauce. Not heavy cheese. Heavy cream, eggs, and Parmesan cheese.
No wonder I wish you hadn't corrected yourself. He's carb loading. I mean, but that's what you got to do if you're a professional athlete. You got to carb load.
Yeah, but it is freaking delicious.
It is. It is quite good.
Let's not get
he also shares a
here.
first name with a Yu-Gi-Oh villain. So
And last name with well, he doesn't share a last name, but his first name is Jeff Merrick's last name. So that's cool. Anyway,
Merrick is the
Jeff
villain from
Merrick's
season
last
2,
name is
right?
the same as a Yu-Gi-Oh villain.
all
Yeah,
right.
that's from season 2, right?
Battle City, yeah.
Battle City. Yep.
All
He
right.
was a very good villain.
In
Moving
the fourth
on.
round, the Panthers went with a Swedish defenseman at 125 overall in the Allsvenskan, who I'm not going to try to pronounce his team name, but Ludvig Jansson it was the pick. He was not ranked, although the elite prospects only ranked 121 players, so this was a 125th pick. Still doesn't have a very high probability of success. I mean, even relative to fourth round picks from their thing. In the J20 league, he scored 4 points in 9 games. In the Allsvenskan, which again is not the SHL, that's the second division in Sweden, he had 5 points in 47 games. Their scouting report on him pretty much says that like he does have skills, but he plays in a way that like a coach would hate. He makes questionable decisions, just really chaotic. But I mean, this more so I think is what we were talking about, a guy that like has some at least like NHL level traits, like the potential to be NHL level at a certain few things, and just like doesn't have the hockey IQ, at least from what I'm inferring that scouts are implying, to round it all out at the, even the Swedish second division level right now to be an impact guy. If you only have 5 points in 47 games, you're not an impact player. I don't think I'm going out on a limb by saying that, but it's the fourth round. So you identify a guy with like at least the potential to be NHL level at a lot of things, and that this could be a pick that works out. I mean, I'm not going to say that I thought it was a great pick, but I can see the process here that I don't see with the third round pick.
It's a great pick for one reason. It gives us the potential of a Ludwig pairing.
Yes.
That's my analysis on this pick. End of analysis from Jacob.
Yeah, Zito described his skating as elite, which I don't know if that's necessarily what scouts would describe it as, but they do describe it as pretty good. Like this is highest rated trait.
That's good.
My analysis is for this pick is if we were going to go off the name thing, we should have drafted Elias Pettersson. So we could have pulled that move that scumbags pulled back in the day in fantasy football where you traded the Ricky Williams that played for the Colts as if he was Ricky Williams that played for the Dolphins.
Or and the Islanders, Sebastian Aho.
Exactly. If we were going to play the name game instead of matching Ludwig, we should have drafted Elias Pettersson and then, tried to like trick, ancient Holland over there in Edmonton. Now we were trading him Elias Pettersson as part of a 3-team deal for like.
I think this is why the Canucks did it, because they can be like, we'll trade you Elias Pettersson. And then other teams wouldn't have to be like, well, you don't have the Elias Pettersson that's actually good.
But they could easily be like, which one?
Not if they're smart.
Elias Pettersson, like the good one, wears number 40, right?
Yeah.
I really hope like they put this Pettersson, if he ever makes it to the show, as number 48. So the numbers are almost exactly alike in terms of visual.
They should absolutely, especially in that Canucks font, they should absolutely do it. I think that this is enough analysis on this guy. So we're about to
more time talking about someone else.
Let's talk about Sandis Vilmanis, the 5th round pick that they made from Luleå, also in Sweden, but he's not Swedish. He's Latvian. So to reference Michael Rappaport, they drafted who? This motherfucker might not even have a fucking green card. Have you guys ever seen that clip?
I have not.
Oh, it's so
I
good.
have not.
Ethan, shout out to Ethan. Happy birthday, Ethan. He replied with it when this guy got drafted, and it just brought back so many good memories of when the Knicks drafted Kristaps Porzingis, and he did not know where Latvia was. So this guy's Latvian. This is all that to say. This guy's Latvian. 6'1", 200 pounds, good forward. He is somebody that Chris Peters seemed to like. So shout out to that. Scouting report describes him as playing a little bit slow, which is something that always troubles me in particular. Not that I'm like some prospect expert, but I want guys that can process NHL level game. I feel like if you can't do that, you really can't overcome that, even if you have elite speed, elite shot, something like that, blah, blah, blah. You get it. that's something that's very difficult to overcome. However, he is a guy that impressed some people in the U18s, playing for a weak team, kind of buried in here in Sweden. Will probably play at World Juniors this upcoming August, because that Latvia is going to be there, and there's just not that many good Latvian players. So here's a guy that has the potential to, because he's playing in Sweden, because he's going to play for the Latvian national team, play against some top competition and maybe show something more. So even though, like I said, the stuff about the processing speed really worries me, like I can again see where they're going with this one. It's not my favorite pick of the draft. That will come later, but like I definitely see the vision.
So what you're saying is we drafted the next Zemus Gergensen.
Sure. I mean, that would be fine in the 5th round. I mean, Zemus Gergensen is a good defensive forward. I think this is more an offensive potential kind of pick, but maybe they said that about Gergensen himself. So,
I mean, again, you're just in the 4th or 5th floor, or in the 5th round now. You're looking for 50 NHL games to call the pick a hit. So whatever.
Yep, 157th overall. I'm sure not many guys that have been drafted in that position have turned out to be great players. So let's go to the 6th round, and Panthers drafted another forward here, Canadian this time, not Latvian. And I know it's Latvian, but that's how Michael Rappaport said it. Josh Davies was the pick at 186th overall, 5'10", 200-pound forward, playing for Swift Current. The scouting report on him is basically that he is a battering ram. He loves to hit guys. He loves to go after the puck on the forecheck. He has offensive ability that scouts are kind of confused hasn't turned into more production. Maybe he needs to repurpose his motivation. I'm not particularly positive on that, but I do think that this guy has some potential to be like your Mason Marchment type. We've seen how good Mason Marchment was on the forecheck this year, and there's clear value in something like that. His physicality is rated a 7 out of 10 by Elite Prospects, that's really high for this range of the draft. All his micro stats are very strong. Transition in the 80s out of 100, defense in the 80s out of 100, overall 77 out of 100. Only really his passing micro stats seem to be weak. So this is where you start getting into the point in the draft where I feel like the Panthers did pretty well getting this guy in the 6th round, which again, there's a small chance he ever even sets foot on NHL ice. But like, if you're going to take shots in this part of the draft, you want to look for those abilities that haven't turned into production.
Yeah, you're not finding guys who've scored 1.5 points per game in the CHL at this point, unless there's something really wrong with them off the ice, or they're not a hockey guy and they're 5'5". So you're literally throwing darts, and that's kind of why. I mean, not to take another shot at Bukla, that we haven't danced on him enough, but like him just kept mentioning all through day 2 how he helped draft Mackenzie Weegar. Like, I mean, he finally admitted at one point, like, one of the scouts like banged the table for Weegar, but it's just like, dude, you threw a dart and got lucky. Like, you can't ever say like, oh, we knew Mackenzie Weegar had the potential to be a top 30 defenseman in the NHL. Because if you did, you wouldn't have waited till the 7th round. You would have done it
right.
like the 3rd or 4th. Like,
absolutely.
Colton Parayko, that's the story of a guy where it's like, hey, we knew something on a guy who wasn't even ranked, and we, took him early in the 3rd round to make sure. Or Braden Point. Like, those are stories of teams like having a conviction. In the 7th round, you're praying.
Jake, any comment on Davies?
No, none whatsoever. I know nothing about him.
Well, I sent you the scouting report if you do want to take a look.
You sent me the scouting report right as we started recording.
Yeah. Look, I'm not saying you
behind
need
the
to look
scenes with Panther Puri. I was about to say with PTP.
All right, let's go to the goalie the Panthers drafted, which I think you should always take a goalie in a draft, because you just never know with goalies. It seems to be more common these days that people are hitting in the 1st round. I mean, if we look at all the most recent 1st round goalies, you got guys like Vasilevsky, Ottinger. Samsonov wasn't necessarily a hit, but like, he played well in the playoffs. I'm sure I'm missing a few guys. Carey Price went in the 1st round. Spencer Knight looks like he's going to be good.
Jack Campbell.
And now in the 6th round, the Panthers drafted Tyler Muselik from the USNTDP. And, he's a goalie. So again, like, it doesn't even really matter like what exactly his traits are and aren't, because a lot of this can change and you just kind of want to take swings. But the scouting report on him is basically that he's a little bit too safe, that he's got good fundamentals, but what he needs to grow into is a guy that has that unpredictable breakaway move, like the Vasilevsky poke check that we saw him do with the stick turned over. That's not something that everybody can do. Obviously, Vasilevsky is elite, but that's the kind of thing that he needs to develop. He needs to be able to surprise shooters a little bit so that they can't surprise him.
Yeah, I mean, he's the number 2 or number 3 goalie for the U.S. national development team right now.
Yeah,
like
number 2 or 3. Yeah, like there's a guy basically he goes in between.
Right, and if since we all probably followed Spencer Knight when he was with the U.S. NDTP or whatever the acronym is, he was getting 90% of the starts. So you were getting a guy who was starting when the number 1 was either injured or you're playing, Sisters of the Poor State University. You take swings. TJ stole my analysis. You need to draft a goalie in every single draft because you never know where the next Devin Levi is. And you need to always be swinging, especially late in drafts. Like, good job. You found a goalie, you took him. Most likely we never see him again. But if we get something out of him, or he has a great year, he's going to Massachusetts, I think it was.
I don't remember. I got to look this up.
Okay, yeah, he's going to some solid college hockey team as a freshman. So hopefully he has a good year like Devin Levi did, and we go from there.
I think he's going to New Hampshire.
Close enough, Northeast.
He's going to be playing against good shooters.
Yeah.
So that's a nice thing to see. In the Hockey East, he'll be going up against guys at BC that they had a number of first-round picks, I believe. It's not Michigan, but like BC, BU, these are good programs. He's going to be playing against programs like that. And UMass, I think, like you mentioned. I think they're in the Hockey East as well. Could be totally wrong. Anyway, interestingly enough, the Panthers traded into the 7th round. They were already there, but they traded into the 7th round to draft twice. And with the first pick, they took Liam Arnsby at 214, the Penguins pick. They gave away their 7th round pick next year, which pretty low cost to pay, honestly. They probably moved up in terms of pick position because the Penguins, did not make it past the first round. And the Panthers did make it past the first round this year. They, you have to hope that they're going to do it again next year. It's not the worst bet to take. Anyway, Liam Arnsby is the pick, 5'11", 183-pound forward, plays for North Bay Battalion in the OHL. He was their captain, which I think is very interesting. If that's what they're reaching for here, that would be kind of curious. But, it's really rare that you see guys that are 18 be the captain of an OHL team, even though, the oldest guys on the teams are usually 20. But he had 9 goals, 17 assists last season in 46 games. He's a guy that you could also say this about a few of the other guys that they took, known as a hard worker. You could say that about Davies. You could say that about Janssen to an extent. High motor is the saying in the industry. And I think that that's what they were targeting a little bit in this draft. And I can't say I dislike that because the hardworking guys are the ones that will work on their flaws the hardest. And those are the guys that have the best chance to become players at the next level. If they, we always hear about the elite players in the game. They go into the rink every summer and they work like 10 hours a day on whatever it is that they want to improve upon that summer. And then all of a sudden, you got Sidney Crosby's got the slap shot or the wrist shot, or John Tavares goes from being a bad defensive player to a good one in one off season.
Or keep it at home. Barkov, he developed a one-timer over the last 2 years working with Patrick Laine.
Yeah, absolutely. And the best players in the world do this, so it's good to see that they're targeting players with at least a similar mentality. And they're not going to be the best players. Like this will never be Barkov, for example, Liam Arnsby, but at least like maybe he's Mason Marchment. And that's kind of what you're hoping for when you draft a forward in the 5th to 7th rounds. Maybe one day you get a Pavel Datsyuk, but that's not going to happen all the time. You might get an Andre Palat. Like that's a little bit more common.
Or Patrick Hornqvist.
Yeah. That's another good one.
I saw somewhere on Twitter that this guy was described as the guy who's going to be the alternate captain of your AHL team throughout his 20s. That's going to be your like second or third call up when injuries happen. You'll play in your bottom six and won't make mistakes.
Okay,
That's
so
fine.
we drafted Zach Dalpe.
Whatever, you know.
That's fine. Zach Dalpe was an NHL player.
Yeah.
Again, it's the 7th round. Like I don't see anything else we need to say. It was the 7th round.
All right. Well,
I
it
was
is the
slow
7th
on the draw,
round,
but I had a
and I
joke
know
to
you
make
wanna-
about players working on things in off seasons.
I know we want to temper our expectations for 7th round picks, but honestly, their last pick that they made in this draft is my favorite player they drafted. Jack Devine from the University of Denver, a national champion.
He's from Glencoe.
He's your favorite too now.
I'm from Glencoe. I was 10 when he was born, but I'm from the same town. I lived in Glencoe when he was born in Glencoe.
See, you basically rub shoulders with this guy.
Yeah, he's my best friend.
He drove past the hospital he was being born.
I don't think there was a hospital in Glencoe. He was probably born in somewhere. I never had to go to the hospital when I lived in Chicago, so I actually don't know where the closest hospital was.
Anyway, Jack Devine, 5'11", 172 pounds, right-handed shot, mostly playing as a winger in Denver, I believe. And you know, this is a classic case of a guy that is buried in the lineup when he's draft eligible because, I mean, Denver won the national championship. So, like, there's going to be additional opportunities when guys like, you know, Matt Benning, Bobby Brink make it to the next level. And he's going to get an elevated opportunity and is another guy that's known as a hard worker. His skating is something that scouts were really nervous about, but still, like, the hard work that he has, the high end passing ability and the hard working ability that he has, I was going to say. People believe that he's another guy that can work to get himself to the next level. And I mean, he did well in the NCAA this year. I mean, for buried in the lineup, he had 16 assists in 36 games, only 3 goals, but, like, you know, that's solid. He's got a good passing ability, all his micro stats, especially the defensive ones, are very solid. I mean, this is a guy that was reliable in the bottom 6 for a championship team. College is, like, you know, it's not the NHL, but, like, that's a much better level than the OHL. That's a much better level than the QJMHL. It's a much better level than the WHL. NCAA, that's a tough league to play in, and he had relative success. And he was ranked 114 in the top 121 by Elite Prospects. And I think that nowadays everybody used to say, like, you know, you have to draft good skaters because you can't improve your skating ability. That's like you're born with what you have. But I don't think that's true anymore. We've seen guys improve their skating all the time. Like Carter Verhaeghe was somebody that people said, oh, he's too bad of a skater to ever play in the NHL. He's the top half of the lineup skater for the Panthers now. He's a good skater.
Barkov, he was a mediocre skater at best his rookie year, and now he's a very good skater.
And I think this is another guy. He's going to become a good skater, I think.
Mason Marchment, I mean, he's still not a great skater, but he went from an ECHL quality skater to, you know, a 4th line NHLer quality skater. But with his, you know, 1st line NHL brain, like, you have a good hockey player.
Yep. And we should talk about
not the best skater.
Yeah.
Wasn't the best skater, but through his leg injuries, he was shown time and time again working on his lateral movement and his skating ability.
Yeah, absolutely. So with Devine here, you look at the GPS and there are some exciting names on here. Brian Rust, Connor Sheary, Teddy Bluger. You know, there's some other guys that were minor NHL.
Why are
like
all
Riley
of them
Shannon.
Penguins?
I don't know. Maybe Penguins.
The Penguins were.
Why did the Penguins draft this guy?
Role
Why did they
players
draft
late
him?
in
He's
draft
so
that kept their runs going.
That's
yeah.
fair.
Drake Kajula and Riley Sheahan were other guys that were drafted in the same kind of neighborhood. But I mean, in terms of age and era adjusted points per game, he's got better stats than all of them. And he was younger than Brian Rust. So, I mean, I'm not saying this is the next Brian Rust, but I am saying this is the next Brian Rust. Panthers drafted the next Brian Rust.
And he's from Glencoe.
I think this is the best player the Panthers drafted.
The last one?
Yeah, I do. I really do.
I think he had the highest rating, like like pro hockey, whatever. One of the very analytically driven.
The PCS, the podcaster's cool sword.
Sure.
I was very proud of that joke before we started recording.
Overall thoughts on the draft strategy, guys?
Love it. A+. They drafted a kid from Glencoe.
Okay, well, I'm going to give an actual serious answer, and I did not like it. I tweeted it out. I really wish they would have spent this draft making as many moves as possible to acquire more assets in future drafts, because the reality is you have a 2 to 3 year window right now, and you're clearly in a cap crunch where you like they didn't get rid of Patrick Hornqvist this weekend, and I'm sure we'll talk about it more, but like the number one priority of this offseason was to unload Patrick Hornqvist, and it's clear they don't have the assets to do it because the prices to unload money right now were not high. We saw 2-year contracts get traded for not much.
Yeah.
So
second and third round pick,
right.
or just moving down 13 spots in the draft for the Leafs' sake.
Right. So in my opinion, instead of taking all of these flyers on hardworking guys, and maybe they hit on 1 or 2 of them and hit that 100-game benchmark, but I would have loved to have seen like that 3rd round pick traded for a 3rd round pick next year, that 4th round pick traded for a 6th round pick and a 4th round pick next year. So that way, when as the season's moving along, or even in the next couple of months, as teams have moved away from this year's draft, and it's like, all right, what are we going to do next year? Like Arizona's already stockpiling picks for next year. You can go to them and say, hey, I don't have a 2nd round pick for you, but I got 2/3 and a 4th for you to take Patrick Hornqvist. You can go to them and make those time moves now. And the
funny thing is they actually do have their 2nd round pick next year. So maybe that's all it takes, but
maybe, but I would have really they should have just punted on this draft. They should have just punted on this draft. And then this is not me saying like, oh, fire Zito. This is just me saying, look, you clearly just went all in and it didn't work because you didn't make it to the cup. You didn't even make it to the conference finals, and you blew a lot of draft capital. At some point, you have to try and get some new draft capital so you have some flexibility to make moves again, because you just went through the draft and didn't trade Patrick Hornqvist.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that specifically later. I'm going to say I disagree for the main reason that they have this scouting staff that they're not like making cuts to because they don't have picks. So I think that when you have that lower pick volume, you can utilize the scouting staff's like ability to, dedicate their scouting resources a little bit better, because the teams that are drafting the 1st round maybe multiple times and drafting the 2nd round maybe multiple times, they're thinking about those picks first and foremost, and the picks later in the draft are almost an afterthought. Whereas like you have to assume that these are the main targets that they wanted. And I mean, I didn't really like the way that they went the 3rd, 4th rounds, but I think 6th and 7th round, they got good value for those rounds.
It's funny you actually say it that way, because as you were talking about the dedication of resources, I was literally thinking that it's funny because you seemed to be happier about the picks the later we got.
Yeah, which might just be the expectations dwindling. True. But I still think that Jack Devine was the best player they drafted. And look, that's me saying it. I'm not raising my intellect above anybody in the Panthers scouting staff.
I wonder if he's Jewish.
Especially not Bill Zito. But like, that's the player that I like the most, and it seems like based on the GPS and everything like that, he has the highest potential to be a real impact player at the next level. Not like top 6, top 4 starting goalie necessarily, but like you need good bottom sixers to win a championship. I mean, like I said, Andre Palat has been a bottom sixer for the Lightning for a number of years, and
but Palat would be top 6 on most teams. But I don't want to get into that.
Yeah,
but here's the thing, and this is going to my point. Name anyone that they drafted today that's going to help during this 2 to 3 year cup run.
I mean, the hope is that one of them pops in the NCAA or the OHL or whatever league they're in.
Right.
And then they're your, Eric Brandstrom to get somebody at the trade deadline.
Or the other idea is that one of these guys or a couple of these guys can help extend the window
by providing that value on an ELC in the lineup.
Yeah, but even then, they're still 2 to 3 years away. And yes, you need to be thinking about 2 to 3 years away, but they need to win a cup. Like their cup window is right now.
And
like
if 3 years from now we have Jack Devine as a middle sixer on an ELC around Barkov, who will still be here, and I imagine many other players will still be here.
But here's the thing that makes me think maybe this isn't their window. They have Spencer Knight, and he's got a real chance of being the next Andrei Vasilevsky, Carey Price, elite goalie. I mean, look at what Jake Ottinger did in the playoffs, and he wasn't even on the same level as Spencer Knight in the NTDP. Like, Jake Ottinger was like, all right, this is our top goalie. He's a nice goalie. We're going to take him to the World Juniors. He's going to be the backup there. Spencer Knight was like, this is the best American goalie
ever.
Like, the highest rated American goalie at this level of his development ever, of all time.
Since Gibson was that good too.
Fair enough. Yeah, I mean, Gibson had some amazing years.
And a couple of years ago, I said that Gibson was one of the best goalies of the 2010s decade. So if Spencer Knight becomes one of the best goalies of the 2020s decade, then maybe TJ's onto something. Maybe our window hasn't quite opened yet, and we're all just thinking a little too hard.
I think that you're right to say that, like, they shouldn't operate under the assumption that Spencer Knight is the guy that's going to keep their window open forever, which is why they should make moves to get a Claude Giroux type of guy. You know, the Ben Sherratt move, obviously, we didn't agree with, but, like, I'm fine with them taking the swings like that because their window is more open now, and you just never know what it's going to look like in a few years.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't necessarily say that, like, they're screwed if they don't win a championship next year. You know?
No, they're not screwed, but, you know, I'm going to use your example, Jake. What's more important to keeping the window open? Zach Devine?
Jack Devine.
Jack Devine.
Zach Levine is a basketball player.
Well, I said Devine.
Levine.
I know you did.
Yeah. But what's more important? Zach Devine on a middle six or more likely bottom six role 2 to 3 years from now, or moving Hornqvist so you can keep Claude Giroux for 2 to 3 more seasons?
¿Por qué no los dos? I know they didn't, but ¿por qué?
Yeah, and we don't know if it's because, like,
they don't have the trade assets. I mean, maybe there is a deal in the works for that second round pick next year already, but, like,
maybe a team actually wants Hornqvist.
Then why haven't they been able to move him yet?
Maybe the Panthers want Hornqvist. That's the thing we don't.
Weird. I wonder which one of us said that to the other two of you. I wonder. All
right, let's talk about this now. So the Panthers have not traded Hornqvist yet, and like Alex said, we saw guys move. We saw Petr Mrazek move. We saw Zach Kassian move. These were clearly contract dumps because the teams had to give up some draft capital to do it. But Hornqvist is still in Florida. And because Zito wants to operate under this, like, Lamoriello-like shroud of secrecy, we have no real idea if they're, like, calling every team in the league and gauging what it would take to move Hornqvist. He does have that 8-team no-trade list, which may have teams like Arizona, Buffalo, Seattle,
It's going to be all the Canadian teams, and then some bottom feeders.
And we don't know if they're like, this guy is too important to our locker room to move. Like, we just don't know. I would assume they're not operating under that assumption because I think
they are operating exactly under that idea.
And that's stupid.
It is stupid. Unfortunately,
I don't disagree, but that doesn't make it untrue.
All right, I have to agree that that's just, like, that's really dumb. I mean, we'll talk about the Duclair thing in a minute, but, like, that does potentially get you a get out of jail free card. But, like, if Duclair's not going to be on LTIR, which, again, he will be, then you can't even keep any of Sherratt, Marchment, and Giroux, which we have a feeling that they want to keep as many of them as they can. But, like, you have to make some room. You have to make some room for Giroux. Like, you cannot keep Hornqvist and Giroux unless you're going to trade Huberdeau or Barkov or something stupid like that.
Sam Bennett.
Huberdeau. Interesting.
I don't want to get into
They're not going to do that. No. The only way you trade Jonathan Huberdeau this season is if you totally bottom out.
Yeah, I would trade him for, like, Svechnikov or something, but again, like, they're not doing that. You know, somebody that's almost as good and is, like, 5 years younger.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're not trading Huberdeau. They're talking contract with him.
Yeah.
Like, let's not even waste time on it.
That reminds me of what we should talk about next. But let's finish talking about Hornqvist.
I think they want to keep him. That's just my 2 cents. I personally would love to not do that. Even when they first traded for him, my thought was, great, he'll give us 1, maybe 2 decent years, but we should not keep him the 3rd year. I mean, a buyout is still on the table.
I think they should have traded him last offseason.
I agree. But
they should have done everything that they could to get rid of Yandel without buying him out. And we're looking at, look, he had the no movement clause. We all know that it would have been difficult. Maybe he wasn't even willing to waive for the expansion draft, which, like, I have such a hard time believing that, but like, it's out there. It's possible. And this is going to be like the thing that is my pet peeve for years and years. It's my pet peeve. I understand people don't feel the same way, whatever. It's done. They bought out Yandel. I didn't like it, but that dead cap money is on the books for this year. Hornqvist is still here. Yada, yada, yada. They're living in that reality. But, like, you know, buying him out as an option, like you said, and we might see that happen in the next couple of days.
I think that's where this goes.
Hopefully they can move him. Maybe they want to keep him because he's their culture warrior, whatever.
I think that's it. By the way, if you buy out Hornqvist this summer, the cap hit is about $1.5 million this year and next, which is way
like
more
1.7.
manageable than the $5.3 million just this year.
Oh, it's 5.3. I thought it was 5.1. Yeah, so that means, wow.
You save about $3.5 million. Am I doing my math right there?
Yeah, it becomes $3.5 million over 2 years, but then you don't get Hornqvist. But like,
right,
at the same
but
time,
you don't really care that much next year. It's this year that's the problem.
Yes,
because
I mean, next year will be an issue too. But like,
but this year is where Yandel accounts for $5 million against your cap.
Yeah,
this is the year that you really need the cap savings.
Huberdeau's going to go up, but he's not going to go up 5.3 million. So
a Hornqvist buyout, if you really can't find a dance partner, I think you buy him out.
You have to do it.
That saves you.
I get it. Cultural
that saves you $3.5 million this year at the cost of $1.5 million next year.
A team that I think should be interested in him is Detroit, because he can come in there and he can talk to Lucas Raymond. He can talk to some of the other forwards they have that are young. You know, Philip Zadina hasn't really become the guy that they hoped he would become.
F in the chat for Joe Veleno.
Yeah. I mean, he's fine, honestly, but like,
I thought he was going to be so much better.
Yeah.
Can we talk about Detroit for a second, trading for another goalie?
That was weird.
It was not weird because Alex Nedeljkovic isn't that good.
He's not, but they have Sebastian Kosa.
Yeah, but he's a few years away, it seems like.
I mean,
right,
so
but what do the Red Wings hope to accomplish? But yeah.
Yeah, but I think Yzerman's trying to do that thing where, you know, you start like, instead of going from bottom out to playoff contender, he's trying to ease his way out of it, start, you know, building the locker room in terms of, hey, this is no longer an organization.
And
building the
that's
locker room, you
Patrick
say.
Hornqvist.
You know who might be a really valuable asset?
Patrick Hornqvist. Yes, I agree.
And they have the cap space. They have
also
a shit ton of cap space.
I think Vancouver might be interested in him for like a few reasons.
But they have to move JT Miller before that could even become possible.
Hey, what an interesting idea.
I'm just saying.
Hornqvist for JT Miller, 1-for-1. Who says no?
Hey, they got to throw in a 5th round pick. More culture from Hornqvist.
True.
But I just want to take my victory lap. Everyone was like, oh, what is Carolina doing? Nedeljkovic was so good for them last year. And I was like, yeah, he was an out of nowhere goalie who had an amazing year. And they traded him in instead of paying him money. And guess who was right? Carolina Hurricanes. And
I wouldn't say that they were emphatically right, because like they're still getting pretty decent value for what he's getting paid. Like, he's not fucking Hasek or anything, but like, he's fine. And they're not paying him very much.
Nedeljkovic had 12.1 goals above replacement and 2.1 wins above replacement last year, Alex. So I wouldn't be so confident in your high horse. He was still quite good for them.
It definitely worked out for them in terms of what they ended up doing in the crease, because Freddie Anderson had a phenomenal year. They bought low on him, and they had the opportunity to do so because they traded away Nedeljkovic. I still think that like it was weird that was the best that they could do at the time, but like they put themselves in the best position to win this year and next. And
Interesting.
what can you really say about that other than
there's Carolina's
job.
system is so strong. You do not need a high end goalie, and that's the same thing Avalanche are doing. Like they weren't going to pay Darcy Kemper to be slightly above average.
Yeah,
for
but
them.
then they fucking went out and got Georgiev, who is an
Do you like
upgrade.
Georgiev, Alex?
He's fine. But
He's okay. He's
They only
not
need fine.
Shesterkin, but he's still good.
Yeah, like that. But I'm calling him fine. Like he's a middle of the pack NHL goalie, but that's all they need. They don't need to be spending more than a few million AAV on their goalie.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that. Let's move on to what I was kind of alluding to earlier. So I don't know how much we should really talk about that because I don't get the sense it's very real. But what's the name of the Senators reporter? Bruce Garriock, I think his name is.
Yeah, Garriock.
Oh, the Senators are kicking tires on Mackenzie Weegar. He's from Ottawa. They're apparently looking for a defender that can play on the right side. So that kind of makes sense. But then, like, it doesn't make sense that the Panthers would be looking to move him. And I really didn't get the sense. Like, I listened to the most recent DFO rundown, which I think everybody should just go ahead and subscribe to it so you don't have to hear me talk about what they said on it all the time. It's Frank Saravelli and Jason Greger, who covers the Oilers, and that's a daily faceoff. And he said, I really don't get the sense that the Panthers are looking to trade Weegar. I actually think they're looking to extend him, which we had this conversation. We're not so sure that they should be looking to extend it, but I think we all agree that like they should not be looking to trade him now.
Yeah.
No.
And I don't think it's going to
Weegar
happen.
is essentially your own rental this season.
Yeah. Does anybody disagree that it's not going to happen, or at least like it's a very low chance of happening?
There's one scenario and one scenario only where it makes sense to trade Weegar, and it's if you do exactly what the Canadians did, which is you trade Weegar for assets and then immediately use those assets to flip for Jacob Chikrin.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't think that you're going to get the asset volume that you need. Like, they would have to be like getting 2 quarters and then adding the other 2 quarters that they have for $1 that adds up to Jacob Chikrin. And like we said, they just don't have the assets. Like
that's fine. I'm just saying that's the only situation where it makes sense for the Panthers to trade Weegar, where I think Weegar is better than Chikrin. You're slightly downgrading from Weegar to Chikrin, but you're getting cost control.
You're definitely downgrading. I think Weegar's better.
So that's the only situation I think it makes sense. I mean, it doesn't have to be Jacob Chikrin, but where you're slightly downgrading your defenseman, but you're getting desperately needed yearly cost control.
Yeah, I mean, we agree that they're in a position that they're desperately trying to win the Stanley Cup. They don't want to do anything that they think might diminish their chances to do it, even if they improve 3-4 years down the line. I think this would definitely fall in the category of they would diminish their chances to do it when you're talking about a guy that has been on Norris ballots for 2 consecutive seasons and is making less than $4 million against the cap. It just wouldn't make sense.
Yeah.
Unless they get some kind of ridiculous.
This is the last year that he'll make less than $4 million.
Right. So that's why the extension is a different conversation. I just think worrying about that extension now, when you still have the player for another season at that absurdly low cap hit, you're just missing the forest for the trees. You really are. I think that's what's going on. And everybody agrees with me apparently. So let's move on.
Do we think that the fan base rage against Weegar has subsided? I feel like it has.
I don't think it ever will to an extent, but like whatever. You know, there are some people that are always going to have their pet peeves, like me and the Yandel buyout. Like we could win a cup and I'd still be like, man, they shouldn't have bought out Yandel because he still had that dead money on the cap. Like I would still.
We could have won the cup better.
We could have done it better. Absolutely. Let's talk about the Duclair thing, because I think it's kind of interesting, the implication of this. So torn Achilles in off-season training. The only benefit to this is that it happened very early in the off-season and that it does potentially give them some LTIR relief for the first half of the season. But, you know, it really sucks to see him have a 31-goal season and then all of a sudden you're not going to have him to start the year. And I mean, this is going to be a big transition with them going to a new coach. And, you know, the success that they previously experienced is not a guarantee. Now, we don't think they're going to fall off the face of the top of the standings, but at the same time, like, you know, they're going to have to adjust to life without Duclair for the beginning of the year. And they won the President's Trophy last year, so the playoffs are the top priority. He should be back for those, given that he had a successful surgery. I believe it was reported he had a successful surgery.
It's always successful surgery. They never say it was unsuccessful. We find out it was unsuccessful when the guy is back on time.
Yeah, fair enough. Any quick thoughts on this?
The only spin that this is a good thing is the LTIR relief. But the reality is you just lost 30 plus goals for $3 million, which is an incredible value. This sucks, but unfortunately, these are the things that happen. And yeah, I mean, I know Duclair was getting scratched in the playoffs, but I mean, I think that was, again, Burnett just trying to find something that would work. And Duclair was the guy that they decided to scratch. They need to find a way to turn this into a positive and find a way to bring back Claude Giroux, because it's going to be devastating when he goes to another team.
The problem is that it doesn't seem like Duclair is going to be out all season.
But,
So
you
you
can
can't
still use
pull a
that
Kucherov.
LTIR relief. It's all getting broken down. What's the word when something like it is broken down based on like the parts? It's like what's it called?
Itemized?
No. Like if you start paying rent at the middle of the month, and so you're only charged half of the month. What is that called?
Prorated?
Prorated. That's it. That's absolutely what I was looking for.
Well,
so the prorated LTIR means that they actually are going to get an additional amount of cap space for however long he's out.
And remember, they can always just go out and get some player on LTIR to replace Duclair's $3 million cap space when he's getting ready to come back.
I'm not sure that's how it works. Like,
absolutely, it's how it works.
You don't just get additional cap space when you have additional LTIR guys.
I mean, if you can fit it, yeah, you just go get someone else, put them on LTIR, and you can get more cap space. As long as you can fit it in.
Duclair still counts for his cap hit when he comes back either way.
Yeah, I don't think you understand.
Yeah, right. You're right. It's early.
Yeah, we're recording this Sunday morning for those of you who are not with us, which is all of you. So yeah, how could you know? Real quick, in the pre-draft Elliot Friedman column, he said that the Panthers are shooting down any reports that they were looking to trade Bobrovsky. Does anybody want to say anything about this? Because it doesn't seem like a Bobrovsky trade is imminent.
I almost feel like that's covering their own asses because no one wants to buy on Bobrovsky.
Which is sad. Like, because it's not going to get better in terms of the Bobrovsky market.
I wonder what a Bobrovsky buyout looks like.
It gets better like next year once the
signing oh God.
It never is good.
Don't buy out Bobrovsky ever, please.
His signing bonus is like half of his contract. So instead of getting like the 1/3 relief, you only get 1/4 relief, which that's a big deal when you're talking about as much money as he makes. But I think we do got to set the table for him.
Yeah, there's
moved on.
Literally no time during Bobrovsky's contract in which it makes sense to buy him out.
Yeah,
I think unfortunately it would in the latter stages.
This is going to
still counts for $6.5 million against the cap at the latest possible date.
I think it's next year where his no movement clause, next offseason where his no movement clause becomes a partial, like a 16 team.
It's either next or the year after,
and his real money goes way down. So that's when you're going to have to find a way. You're going to have to find a way to trade him to a team trying to reach the cap floor and doesn't want to spend a lot of real money.
It's 24-25, by the way, where the modified no trade kicks in. But he still has a full no move as well through the whole contract. The no move doesn't get replaced by the modified no trade.
It does in terms of the trade protection.
Yeah, the
no move just means that minors. Exactly, which means that you can't be like, we'll waive you and someone will claim you, so you're gonna go away because you can say no.
Yeah. No move,
which is what the Lightning did to McDonough.
Yeah, because he only had a no
was
trade,
also full no trade. I thought it meant both.
No,
this whole time, and then a no trade just meant that you could be waived.
Well, maybe
you couldn't be traded.
Maybe a full no move clause includes a no trade clause, but you can modify the no move clause with a partial no trade clause.
All right, let's move on. 2-year extension for Eetu Luostarinen. $1.5 million average annual value.
Fine. I know we always say don't give term to depth players, but
that's not
2 years is not term.
Yeah. Well, anything more than 1 year is term to me.
I disagree that 2 years is term for a depth player, but yeah.
Yeah, no, it's fine.
I think the average annual value, which like again, $1.5 million. Look, that's not a lot of money, but at the same time,
it's just replacing Achari's money. That's all it is.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
But like, I'm not sold on E2.
He's fine in his role. He does well enough at what he does, and it's not an impactful enough role to move the needle one way or the other.
Yeah,
I think his true cost value according to the Athletic last year was like 3 point something in terms of what he was bringing on the table. So even at 1.5, you're still getting value. So
yeah,
all right.
Sure.
As long as you keep playing with Ryan Lomberg, you're going to see results.
Yeah, there you go. Shout out to Lombe back at because of that extension that he signed. So
I think
we
all
don't have to worry
wish it
about
would have
that.
been a little cheaper just to save us some cap space because right now every dollar counts, but 1.5 is fair.
Yeah, I'm not going to lose my mind over what he signed for versus like what I think I would have. $1.5 million feels about right for him
all right,
to me.
A couple more two-way extensions.
Hepo
Miami comes back.
Hepo, this is put up or shut up time.
Absolutely,
this is his last chance to prove himself.
Yeah, he's got to show up now, or he's going to go back to Finland.
Like it's time.
Yeah,
and we were very high on him for a while, also.
Yeah, because he had like
because of how good he
150
was in the
points in the WHL.
And then he also was good in Finland.
Kronman was very high on Heponiemi for a while. Like he featured him in the Gifted series. Like,
and his playmaking is still like very high end, but like,
but
got to round out that game.
Still has not yet gotten used to North American professional hockey.
Yeah, much better in the AHL this past season, but still like not at the level where you're like, oh, this is an NHL guy. Like, why is he here?
Right. This is. I mean, I'll give some interesting context here in that there is someone who spent 2 years kind of toiling in the AHL only to come in and light up the NHL 5 years down the line. Do we all know who that is? No, not quite. Better. Brad Marchand.
Okay, sure.
2 years in the AHL.
What about Carter?
Wrong. Then spent like 5 or 6 years kind of just being a decent NHLer, and then just all of a sudden popped off and became a point-a-game player regularly.
One of the weirdest careers.
Yeah. So like, there's still precedent that Heponiemi could become an impact NHLer given his skill set.
Carter.
Mm-hmm.
The Carter.
But this is his last chance to really show the Panthers that he can become an impact NHLer.
Mm-hmm. And then Lucas Carlson, the other guy to get a two-way deal.
Also, that's a 1-year deal. Yeah.
Or sorry, two-way deal. $800K at the
I
NHL
thought you said
level.
two-way. I was just expanding on it.
Right.
I wasn't correcting you.
Guaranteed 400,000 compensation. I mean, he was good last year. Like flat out, we should be happy he's coming back.
Yes.
And that he's not making more than basically the league minimum is a great sign.
Right. This is
and
just
E2 and Carlson were both signed on draft night, and Heponiemi like the week before. But like, yep, this all happened since the last time we recorded. So good. So then the other things that we were looking at, the Huberdeau extension, we kind of talked about they're talking extension with Uyghur. We think that they're going to try to hammer that out. Maybe they're just like trying to see if he's going to take something stupid.
That's
anything about Huberdeau that you guys have heard. I think that they're just kind of talking to him. I think Dwork said something like, "Oh, they're going to start talking to Alan Walsh."
I think we can use the Philip Forsberg extension as a bit of a barometer for Huberdeau. I
don't see him making less than Forsberg, though.
I could see it because he's older.
But he's better.
Also a better player.
Okay. Yeah, probably.
And this is, I mean, I guess it was Forsberg's first shot at UFA.
I wouldn't be excited to sign Huberdeau to 8 times 8.5.
I'd actually be okay with that. I'm expecting him.
I'm in the extreme minority, but
look, you're in the situation where if you want to keep your best players, you have to sign them to contracts that hurt a few, in the back end of it, because you need to keep the AAV down. Yeah, in a perfect world, if the Panthers had perfectly optimized cap space, I'd love to sign Huberdeau to a 4-year, $11 million deal. But
I was going to say 4x9.
Either way, I'm just saying, like, I'd love to do a 4-year deal where you're getting him off the roster and off the cap right when his play is about to steeply decline. But that's not how the world works. Like, you're going to have to give him extra years to get the AAV down.
Yeah, I'm just hoping that like it doesn't happen in year 4 flat, like let alone year 7 and 8.
I don't think it will, but we've talked.
How do we think Nikita Kucherov factors into Jonathan Huberdeau's contract extension?
Kucherov is a much better player, like
Right.
so much,
and
better.
making not a lot of money for how good he is. That's
Really?
kind of
Yeah,
what
but-
I'm saying.
The difference is that was a team that had been winning cups, and like, it's a lot easier to get them to take a discount for the squad when you've made it to the cup multiple times and been in the
That's true.
second and third round multiple times. Like,
When was that signed though? Was it signed before
Kucherov
the bubble?
signed.
It's 2
Kucherov
years.
signed in 2018, so they had been to the Cup Finals with him once.
Yeah, I guess that you could say that they were winning playoff series like every year.
Yeah,
like they've been the best team in hockey since what, like 2016 at this point.
I guess,
Like, it took them a while to get over the hump, but like, everyone knew, like, hey, this is the best roster in the NHL. They just need, smart people were just saying, hey, they just need to, keep it going and not make stupid decisions to blow it up. And eventually they'll get over the hump. And now they've been in the cup 3 straight years, and they're still well positioned to make it for a 4th year.
Mm-hmm. So before we talk about his son, I think that we really should acknowledge the very sad and unexpected, I think, in terms of him being such a young guy, passing of Brian Marchment at, I think it was 53.
Yeah.
And I mean, he was a beloved guy in the NHL community. He was still working as a scout in San Jose. And I mean, when you see that happen, I mean, maybe he had a long-term illness that we didn't know about, but like
he died in Montreal, TJ. Like, this came out of nowhere.
Awful. What else can you say? I mean, he was a guy always known for playing with a lot of passion and love for the game. And I'm not going to say that I was, watching the teams that he was on every night back in the day, but like, I knew that he was a guy that was, like I said, playing with heart, playing with passion. And it clearly rubbed off on his very talented and very passionate, like his dad, his son. And now, not to make this all about what's happening with the son, but we do kind of have to acknowledge this throws a wrench into what's going on with Mason.
I don't think so. I think it just delays things.
Yeah, I mean, but at the same time, like,
seems,
maybe this means that he wants to be closer to home. It could mean that. We don't know that.
I mean, do we even know that his mother lives in San Jose? I really don't want to talk about it this way. I'll say this. It's obviously horrible that, Mason Marchment lost his father out of nowhere. What it means for him signing, I don't want to speculate on, just because it could mean he wants to stay where he's comfortable. It could mean he wants to be close to his mom. It could mean all sorts of different things. We're just guessing by speculating. And I'm not trying to like say you were wrong or bring it up, TJ. I'm just saying, like, we really don't know. So to spend a bunch of time talking about it, I think we're just kind of spinning our wheels. The only thing I think it means is obviously hockey, and his contract's the last thing on his mind right now. So maybe, there seemed to be, prior to his father passing away, there was positive news in terms of him wanting to stay with the Panthers. So maybe they already have, like, there's a few I's and T's to dot and cross, but they've pretty much figured it out. And they're just going to put it on the back burner until obviously funeral services and the grieving process is done and Marchment's ready to focus on hockey again. That's all I think this means.
I think that, if there aren't updates on the subject, everybody should remember that he's going to want or need some space to process this. I mean, I haven't lost either of my parents, so I can't even imagine what that would be like. There's just no way for me to conceptualize that at all. And I mean, it's just one of the most harrowing moments that you can have as a human being, to realize that, this formative person in your life is, you're never going to talk to them again. You're never going to see them again. So, expecting somebody to just bounce right back from that is a lot to expect. And, this may mean that we don't hear about it for a while.
Yeah.
But so how can you blame him?
No taking to Twitter to ask where the Marchment extension is. Give that space and time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Honestly, we'll be able to read between the lines on it. If the Panthers use the cap space that would have gone to Marchment somewhere else, you knew where it was leaning, and again, Marchment's just taking his time and he'll pick his new destination. Or if we're 2 weeks into the off season and the Panthers are keeping $2.5-3 million AAV in their back pocket, that's probably what's going to Marchment. Like, we don't need to ask about it. We don't need to pester our sources about it. Like, that's it. Just let it be.
And that's where I think it's going to be, right around the 3 to 3.5 million range, probably 3 years, possibly 4. And I think that that's going to work out, whenever he's ready to return to the Panthers or return to playing hockey. I think it's going to be a good deal. I think that, like his dad, Mason's a guy that's intelligent, hardworking, and knows his way around the ice. And it's going to be good to have him back if we can. But either way, it's just going to be good to see him back on the ice. And whenever he gets that first goal, however he celebrates to commemorate Brian, is going to be special.
Is there anything else Panther related we need to talk about? I think we've kind of covered everything. We haven't specifically mentioned Giroux, but like we've talked about it enough.
Yeah, I mean, we just
There's
don't know
not
when
much
it's
to
going
say
in.
about him.
When free agency opens up on Wednesday, we haven't talked about it yet, but I'm sure we'll have a podcast pretty soon after to discuss what happens and doesn't happen. I feel like this could be a year where people kind of stall. I mean, we talked about Marchment may do it, Giroux may do it, but if these guys want to get signed right away, the fact that the Panthers haven't moved on from Hornqvist is not a good sign. But we don't know that. But we can pretty confidently say they're not going to get Gaudreau, for example. They're not going to get Klingberg. They don't have the cap space to do it.
Do we want to talk?
Do any of us want Klingberg?
No, I don't want to.
He's just saying the high-priced guys in free agency.
Yeah.
All right. What were you about to say, Alex?
Do we want to talk about Chicago tearing it down for a few seconds, or?
I thought it was it was
funny.
a decent decision that they made to do all that. Like, people saying, "Oh, they didn't get enough for DeBrincat." I don't necessarily disagree, but
They got the
I don't get the
7th overall
people.
pick.
I don't understand why people are like, but he's a young asset. Like, he's 2 years away from UFA. You're not winning.
Thank you. Can I make my argument now, since everyone seems to have disagreed with my comment that Otto made the Duchesne mistake all over again?
Go ahead.
Okay. I think I agree with everyone who says DeBrincat's better than Duchesne. I agree. And TJ, you just said it. DeBrincat's 2 years away from UFA. He's an RFA after this season, and his qualifying offer is $9 million. So it's not like he is really given much money back if he takes another 1 year, $9 million deal next year to get himself to UFA. Ottawa is not a playoff team. Even if they bring in Giroux, they're still not a playoff team. You have 2 years to convince Alex DeBrincat to stay in Ottawa.
I think that they're betting on that it's going to be like a very positive situation in a couple of years, which it might be, but it also might not be. I mean, we're talking about Pierre Dorian right now. What is the track record of sustained success there? There is none.
Pierre Dorian, the same guy who got saved from himself this weekend when he tried to trade the 7th overall pick for Matt Murray.
Well, to get rid of Matt Murray.
He would have moved down.
And he would have retained 25%.
Yeah.
Ugh, that would have been an awful trade. I agree.
He got saved from himself and then was able to swing it for DeBrincat, which was a good deal. But the key thing was he made that deal without a contract in hand, because he can already agree to an extension with DeBrincat starting next Wednesday. No contract conversations. He literally is betting entirely on being able to convince DeBrincat to say.
Wait, doesn't DeBrincat have 2 years left?
No, 1 year.
What? Really?
He's got 1 year left. And then it's the exact same situation as Reinhardt. Well, actually, no, Reinhardt was already
an RFA, yeah.
But so DeBrincat has 1 year left. He can sign an extension, but he's got one RFA year left, and his qualifying offer is $9 million. So he can literally play this year, play next year under a $9 million RFA deal, and then go to UFA as a 26-year-old, where he would get boatloads of cash and not have to play in Ottawa.
Yeah,
this was a massive.
It's the NHL though. Like, people typically stay where they are, even if there's like no loyalty. Like, he'll have been in Ottawa for 1 year. There's no like glitz and glamour because it's Ottawa.
I think
it's not even Toronto.
I disagree. I think the NHL state. Look, Pierre-Luc Dubois just told Winnipeg he's not staying. We haven't seen anything from Patrick Laine wanting to stay in Columbus. Like these guys
that gets done. Though
these guys are going to their UFA, get into UFA now.
I guess you could say that about Gaudreau.
Please let me see Patrick Laine to Philadelphia.
Gaudreau, yeah, Gaudreau's likely leaving Calgary. Like these guys are going to get their money, going to play where they want.
Yeah.
That loyalty thing is going away.
That's
It's
a
more
positive
common.
thing,
The
I think.
loyalty is more common, I feel, when we're talking about the team that drafted you.
Yeah.
Which, like DeBrincat, like you said, Alex, DeBrincat's going to play 1 year in Ottawa, become an RFA. Does he have arbitration rights? I don't think he does.
Yeah, of course. When you're 1 year away from UFA, you definitely have arbitration rights.
Yeah, but his qualifying offer is $9 million, so they cannot pay him less than $9 million.
Yeah.
They can't even arbitration and offer him $8 million. His qualifying offer is $9 million. He is so set up to play 2 years.
He's just gonna, and for what it's worth, I personally, I feel like Ottawa, if Dorian isn't Dorian, is closer than some people might think. They've got some good pieces in there.
I still don't know like where that star forward is that you like need to.
Well,
I mean, Brady.
I don't think of him that way.
And now they have DeBrincat.
I don't think of DeBrincat that way.
Okay.
And they have Drake Batherson.
I like
Either
Batherson.
I'm a big fan
He's
of Batherson.
underrated.
Yeah.
But I still don't
good
think
solid
he's
young-
not.
And they have Alex Formanton, who
Is
is
he Nikita
basically just a
Kucherov?
poor man's Drake Batherson.
Is he Nathan McKinnon? Is he even Ryan O'Reilly?
No, but how there? I don't think there
He's
are
not.
30 of those to go around.
Look,
Well, you need those guys to win.
I think Ottawa has a good young core. Here's the problem. They play in the Atlantic Division,
That's
where
another
4 of
issue,
the
yeah.
best 8 teams in the NHL reside. Like they're not going to be
Again,
better
like
than
the
Not-
cup odds
not
for this
Boston
coming
anymore.
season, 3 of the top 4 teams are the Atlantic Division.
Yeah, 3 of the top 5 teams in the league are probably in the Atlantic.
I think the betting odds favorites for the Stanley Cup for next year was Colorado, Tampa, Toronto, and Florida.
So good luck passing them. Good luck convincing DeBrincat to want to stick around in this division where for the foreseeable future, you got to catch one of those 3 teams.
So stay tuned for the July 1st, 2023 episode of Panther Paris, where we talk about letting Huberdeau walk so we can
Sign Alex DeBrincat.
So we can get Alex DeBrincat.
Well, no, what's going to happen is the exact same thing that happened with Duchesne, where either this deadline or next deadline, they're trading DeBrincat for less than they paid for him because they fucked up again. Like that's why I think they made the mistake. It's not that DeBrincat isn't a good player. It's they're not going to be able to get him to stay.
Actually, yeah, DeBrincat this coming season is a deadline rental with RFA rights.
That's not happening. He's staying at least another year. But and I still, just because it's the NHL, if this was the NBA, I'd completely agree. But like guys are still feel some sort of internal and external pressure to not leave unless things are just totally awful. And
speaking of, I restarted my my career player on 2K, and I've decided to, instead of being a team player, just be a selfish asshole. And I'm going to demand a trade from the Pistons. I slightly altered my build.
Well, you're in Detroit. Come on.
Well, look, my versatile paint beast build was just named captain of the Pistons, which is cool because I don't think the NBA actually formally recognizes captains.
No, there's no C on the chest, but like Udonis Haslem is the captain.
But my GM was like, "Hey, we want you to be the next captain," which was cool. But now I have a 2-way facilitator. Same build, just like gave myself better 3-point shooting in exchange for mid-range because I figured like if I'm close enough for a mid-range shot, I'm just taking it down low anyway. So fuck it. And on that, I'm going to demand a trade from the Pistons after I get drafted first overall.
Another F in the chat for Detroit. I mean, they've been through so much, and I'm just talking about in sports these last few years, with the Red Wings being bad, with the Tigers being bad, with the Lions being bad, and the Pistons losing.
Speaking of the Lions, that commercial, the AT&T commercial with Matt Stafford.
Yes, really good.
It took me a few watches to get it. Like, I liked it anyway. Like I got like the end of the joke where he was like, "Great trade," and then I kind of worked backwards from there and understood that the whole 12 years thing was literally about the Lions.
Yeah, great commercial.
Fantastic commercial.
Well, since we talked about, do we want to talk about the Doc trade and and then I guess talk about the Habs for a second?
Montreal had a good weekend, man. I'm pretty impressed with
Kent
what
Hughes.
they did. Yeah, thank you. Jack Hughes' dad, not that Jack
I
Hughes, the
I
other Jack Hughes.
personally, Alex didn't like the Slabkovsky pick. I personally didn't think that
I think
Shane Wright was going to be a number one center. So
it's this year reminded me a lot of Patrick and Heischer, where like one of them was pretty consistently the number one overall pick until the very end, and then the other one jumped them at the draft.
Which
I'm surprised that Shane
Nolan
Wright
Patrick
fourth.
Obviously stinks. So
right.
like,
and I've been a Heischer fan. Like I always thought Heischer should go first in that draft. I'm surprised that Shane Wright drops a fourth, but I don't mind the Slafkovsky pick in general. I think.
I mean, he like whenever he was playing against the best of the best, at least in terms of what he could possibly be playing against, that was when he was playing his best.
Yeah.
Is it? Because his Liga stats aren't good.
Yeah, but the Liga stats are when he wasn't playing against that top competition. And I do agree with you that like he did not have a first overall caliber Liga season, and that's something to be concerned about. But at the same time, he had 8 goals in the Olympics, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, but that wasn't really the best on best. That was everyone.
It's better than Liga.
Is it that much better than Liga? It's
I think so.
What do you mean? He was playing against guys from Liga and the KHL and the AHL.
KHL is a lot better than Liga.
All right. Look, I'm not saying it's a certain bust, but I am forever scarred by Rostislav Olej, who was, touted as Baby Yager, but all of his stats against men, I mean, were pedestrian at best. So that's where I'm kind of like, why are we, gung-ho to do this all over again? But, you're right. He did have a good Olympics. He did have a good World Cup. There are some things there that are positive.
I didn't like the Doc trade. I thought that Chicago ran away with a first round pick for a guy I don't ever really think is going to be worth it.
Okay, that's fair. I think Doc is decent. He was just in kind of a rough situation in Chicago.
I think it's not a terrible bet. It's not like they didn't have to give up that much. I'm
not saying that Montreal is going to flip from Stanley Cup to Stanley Cup finalists to last in the league back to the Stanley Cup. Like I'm not saying that that they had that good of a weekend, but I think that they should be pretty happy. Like in my opinion, they should be pretty happy with how it went.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of Romanov versus Doc, like it's a toss up for me in terms of which one I would.
I thought the return for Romanov was pretty solid. I don't think he's shown,
but
much.
I like Romanov.
But
okay.
I don't think he's shown a ton, and I think flipping Romanov to turn him into Doc was a pretty smart move.
I think they both haven't shown a ton.
I think Romanov has shown more than Doc.
Romanov's also older, so that makes sense. He's had more opportunities.
Yeah, I just don't think that was the best asset management. I think I'm just, I don't know.
And I do think it's funny that Chicago is imploding.
Yeah, and on that note, I think that we're gonna wrap this one up. Make sure to rate us 5 stars on RadioShack.com. We are a premium HDMI cable, and we should be treated as such.
Also, go look at Radio Shack's Twitter. They were bought out by Crypto Bros, and it's hilarious.
And rest in peace to Brian Marchment. Very sad that we won't be able to have him around to mentor the young Sharks and Mason. To all the Marchment family and the San Jose family, our thoughts are with you, and we'll leave it at that.
And now TJ goes to the beach.
Where's the recording button?